Levante 2, Barca 3. There's a lot to talk about of this game, but I couldn't get the video out yesterday, but I have to do it now because I do not like the way Barcelona has started this season. And what it seems to me is that it's more of a pickup off of the end of last season than an actual improvement on the team or a fresh start. It's just not that for me. And if you go into the game simply, it was Levante 2-0 at halftime and Barcelona being absolutely destroyed on the transition. Now, on a tactical level, we'll discuss it right after I review this part, but there's a lot to discuss. So, what was Barca's lineup? It was Jean Garcia, standard, Balde, Cubarcia, Araujo, and Eric Garcia, which has been the lineup that Flick has opted for now, I guess, even into including preseason. He's opted for Eric Garcia over Kunde. It was Pedri in the midfield, of course, Casado over De Jong and Gavi. And then what's very different is Flick opted for Rashford, Rafinha, Yamal, and Ferran Torres. So four attackers instead of a number 10 in terms of a midfielder number 10, like Olmo or Fermin. So that's the first thing. Four attackers, two midfielders, and then the defense. But how did the game actually go? And from the start, Barca tried to impose themselves and, pin Levante back, which was the case. But every single transition, every single one, without fail, from Levante, ended up in a big chance for Levante. And you go to the stats real quick. Where are they here? The stats. Levante had six big chances. Six big chances in the game. In the first half, they had three. In the first half, they had three. In the second half, they had three. With 18% possession, that is not normal. And we'll talk about it, like I said, on a tactical standpoint. But they scored early on, 15 minutes in, a counterattack, of course, that happened. And then, of course, Cubarcia got absolutely destroyed on the 1v1 defensively in the box. And then Romero finished it 1-0 right before the halftime whistle. A late first half penalty from Morales. Now, on the actual penalty, people say, oh, it shouldn't have been a penalty. Yes, it shouldn't have been a penalty. But I despise when Madrid or Barca fans in general go on Twitter or social media and instantly just cry forever over penalty calls and just the referees in general. It should not be the case for games against Levante. If there's a big game, a big Clasico, and the referee has a large influence, fair enough. But one penalty call, even though it was a wrong call, it shouldn't be the end of the world because this is a game that Barca should have won with much more ease than whatever they did. So 2-0 at halftime for Levante, and Barca going to halftime. Now, this is one of the most obvious games where, Hansi Flick was going to always make substitutions directly for the second half. Not wait until the 60th minute. He was always going to make halftime subs. And he brought on Olmo for Rashford. Rafinha went to the left wing. And Gavi for Casado. Now, Gavi, I actually wanted him to start this game because he's looked very good in the preseason. And he looked very good in the first game against Mallorca. But he came on at halftime yesterday. And from that moment, Barca, 4 minutes into the second half, a one goal back from Pedri with an insane strike for Pedri from, 25 yards, 30 yards. Insane strike and, 2-1. Then 3 minutes later, a chaos goal from Ferran Torres where a ball was whipped in the cross. Ferran Torres had 2 or 3 Levante players around him, and he managed to get a good finish to make it 2-2. Before we continue, Pedri is insane. Like, this team, especially in the midfield, would be so lost without him. Lamine can't run the entire game like he does. Nobody else can run the entire game like he does. There's no player in the world that runs a game like he does, and there's no midfielder even close to him. You can have ranks where it's like, Pedri, Bellingham, whatever. Currently, there is no midfielder close to him. Vitinha is nowhere near him. I don't want to hear Vitinha who just circulates the ball in his own half. Pedri is insane. You look at this heat map, look how even deep he operates, but also in the entrance to the final third here at the pitch when he goes attacking wise. Insane player, insane pass accuracy for the amount of touches that he had and passes attempted. Chance creator, key passes, just insane from him. And this rating would have been a 9.5 if he actually won more ground duels. But overall, insane player, and he just rarely makes a mistake, whether it's defensively, attacking wise, or just on the ball in general. We go on now to the other part of the second half, and right after Barca scored 2 goals, make it 2-2, once again, it became an insane, just eat up transition sessions. Barca could not handle the transitions of Levante, and when I talk about it tactically, it was a diabolical thing to see because it was just every transition was a counterattack opportunity for a goal, every single one. And conceding 6 big chances to a team with 18% possession is not normal. It should never be happening. And you talk about the XG too. It's one thing to have big chances, but they had that much XG as well. You could have big chances like 6 and only have 1.2 XG. That can happen, but they had more XG than Barcelona as well. So I did not like the defensive setup of Hansi Flick, and I'll talk about it very soon here. So, game goes on, Barca concede transitions, they couldn't find the last goal, and it became an issue of they're getting restless. They're getting very restless. Yamal had very poor shot selection, and it's been the case actually against Mallorca as well. Very poor shot selection where I mean he takes so many shots, 4 of them are blocked, 2 off target and 2 on target, but none of them really challenge the goalkeeper. So he had 8 shots yesterday, and none of them look like they should be going in. So that's the first issue. Yamal's shot selection, not the actual shot that he takes necessarily, but when he decides to take the shot and in which situation he takes a shot, considering the angle and how close the defenders are, it's been poor from Yamal. And then, end of the game, 91st minute, an own goal because I think it was Yamal or Rafinha put a ball in, and then the defender heads it into his own net because Ferran's putting pressure on them. Barca went 3-2, but it's not something to be happy about. I see people on Twitter so happy over, Barca had the 3 points, but there's nothing to be happy about with. This is a very unsustainable way to win games. If you're scraping a 1-0 win against a 1-goal win against Levante this early on in the season, there's not good signs. And we take a look at it now on a tactical standpoint. So, what is my issue with this Hansi Flick system currently? Because obviously, last season, at the start of the season, and towards January till March, it looked very, very strong. But what is my issue with the setup? My issue is that it is so aggressive and it is so attack heavy that the fact that they can see that many transitions and it's so attacking wise, and then they have to win a game, scrape a win against Levante in the second match day by 1 goal. It doesn't make sense because the amount of energy the players put into it to get this to carry these tactics out doesn't make sense because you talk about the aggression of the aggressiveness of this tactic. The players have to constantly press, and obviously there's more energy expenditure there by the players. And when you take all that into consideration, and they still concede 2 goals, and their only win came from a last-second own goal, is it worth it? I don't think so. And we're talking about early days here, where it's the second match of the season. The team should be fresh from a break in the summer. They didn't play the Club World Cup, and this is the case of the performances this early on. So imagine how it would look like around November. That's my first issue. But even as a setup wise, we talk about the aggressiveness of the attack. If it worked out, sure. If Barca won this game 3-0, everyone's going to be doing backflips. But as an actual tactical standpoint, this is Barca's setup essentially the whole game because he had the 82% possession. Most of it was in Levante's half in the area essentially. And you talk about the positions of the players. You have Rashford in here, Pedri, Balde, Ferran's in the box, Rafinha's playing 10, Eric Garcia, Yamal. Casado's a slightly deeper but still involved. And Barca essentially have 2 defenders covering a transition. Now, when Levante get the ball and clear it out, and they have players wide, 2 in the middle, 3 in the middle maybe, and wingers wide, how are you supposed to defend that with 2 center backs only? It's not sustainable. And if Levante gets 2 goals off of that, I know one of them was a weird penalty, but if Levante gets 2 goals off of that, imagine what Madrid does with Mbappe and Vinny. Imagine what they do. So I don't think it's sustainable. Now, of course, maybe the setups change game by game, and there's details that are tweaked by Hansi Flick, but this is not a sustainable way to not only set up your team but also win the games. Because the most important thing is you don't want this team to burn out by October or November. And when that happens, it's not going to look good because it's already not looking good right now. So what is it going to look like then? It's going to look like chaos, which is already the case. And we talked about the back line of Barcelona. They let Inigo Martinez go. They didn't sign anybody else to cover for him. Jerry Martinez still not registered. Christensen's injured every other 10 minutes. So it's essentially just Kubarsi and Araujo again. The fullbacks are playing inside forwards, and there's nothing else they can do. I mean, this is the setup, and I know it's going to be interesting to see how it looks like with Koundé there, for example, instead of Eric Garcia. But what this team looks like right now is, like I said at the start of the video, a extension of the end of last season rather than a fresh start. They added Rashford. Rashford had a good game in my opinion. Balde looked good. Some players look good, but as an actual setup for the team, it doesn't. It's not sustainable. It's not going to work. And what I think Flick has to do is tone down his aggressiveness. I know it worked at Bayern for the whole season or whatever, but there's a theory that's been going around with the second season Hansi Flick theory, where when season two comes with him in charge, which has only been the case once, I think, with Bayern, the team's burnt out. The tactic can't be carried out because of that, and the team becomes more vulnerable in the transition, and it's already shown to be the case so far. What will help this would obviously be Bernal coming back, but you talk about ACL injuries. Gavi already isn't, still isn't, not already, but still isn't completely and utterly back in form, and has been over what, 8 months since he got back from his ACL injury. So when Bernal comes back, how long would it take him to get back into the run of things? I don't know, but the first thing is to set up the midfield more strong. The four attackers I don't want to see again. At the very least, have Fairman or Olmo. At the very least, what I want to see very, badly essentially is once January or February comes around, I want to see a midfield with three midfielders with Pedri, Bernal, and Gavi here, and then I want to see Olmo possibly as a false nine. I just want to see it for at least one game to see how it looks like. Um, of course, it's going to be interesting to see how Lewandowski and Ferran Torres work because Lewandowski is obviously older now. He might be getting injured more. Ferran Torres manages to get stuff done, but he's not having great performances. Um, but overall, the issue of the performance is the sustainability of how it goes about, you know, carrying out these tactics by the players because it's too aggressive to be putting that much energy in and not winning by 3, 4, or 5 goals, which was the case last season at this time. So it's going to be interesting to see how this is managed by Flick, but it definitely has to be managed ASAP because I, I'm not one of these people that watches a sport and gets dopamine from these 2-0 comebacks because Barca does it too often and it's not sustainable. And it was showed that it's not sustainable with how they lost against Inter because they did the same thing and they still lost. So Barca 2, Barca 3, Levante 2. They need to have a better performance next time around, and let's see how they do next weekend. But that's what I think of this setup so far. Hopefully, it gets adjusted, and how they do next game, we'll see.